Hi everyone, I'm Azada Fayazi. I'm a pediatric intensivist and a simulation educator. In this video, I'm going to talk about simulation debriefing. Debriefing is a time after a simulation session where we sit with the learners, us as facilitators, and we talk about their decision making, their thought processes, and their teamwork, and we help them self-reflect on their actions. The method that I'm going to mainly talk about is the PEARLS technique. PEARLS encompasses a few different techniques and is pretty comprehensive, so you may just take away some key elements and use them, incorporate them into your simulation. PEARLS stands for Promoting Excellence and Reflective Learning in Simulation. It has 5 components: setting the scene, reaction, description, analysis, and summary. So first you want to set the scene for the debrief. You're going to tell the learners, we're going to spend the next X number of minutes discussing the case. I'm going to ask you how you felt initially, and then I'll ask you to describe the case. Next, we'll review different aspects of the scenario, what went well, and what you would improve on. At the end, we'll talk about some takeaway points and what you would do in future cases. Okay, so let's start with how you feel. The point of asking how they feel is to give the learner space to briefly vent any strong reactions. Some learners may have trouble expressing emotions, but you're really looking for few words from each learner. Again, expressing strong reactions. This step does not have to be long. It is just to get an idea of where the learners are and potentially how they feel and may approach the debrief. Next is summarization. Ask someone in the group, preferably not the leader, to summarize the case so that they all have a shared mental model before going forward and discussing the medical management. Next is the analysis. This is when you can use a few different techniques to analyze their actions and decision making. Sometimes the learners have already expressed some opinion or thought about how things went. You're welcome to use that to start the conversation or address the issue they brought up. If they already expressed something like, it was chaotic, I didn't know my role, for example, you may say, okay, let's talk about roles. That's one way to start. Another way is using plus delta, which is a very effective technique and it's really great for novice facilitators. You just start with plus, which is asking the learners what went well, and then after they list the things that went well, you'd say, what would you do different? How would you improve next time? And that's the delta part. You can even make it 2 columns on a whiteboard and list the things that they mentioned. So there's a good summary of it visually. I usually organize the debrief in my mind by going over medical management versus going over teamwork, team dynamics. And so if I start with team dynamics, I try to complete all the notes that I made and all the issues that the learners brought up and then move on to medical management or vice versa. Another approach is going in chronological order. If you really need to get at their thought process and why they approached the case the way they did, it might be beneficial to just go through, okay, who entered the room first? What was your thought about, what you needed to do, etc. Those are just some general tips, but a specific technique you can use for this analysis part is advocacy inquiry. This is when you bring up a point and ask what the learner's thought process or rationale was for a decision that they made. For example, you might say, I noticed you decided not to immediately cardiovert the patient. What was your thought process behind that? And of course, your tone is a tone of curiosity and not criticism, because you are just wondering what they were thinking, and maybe their decision was the right decision, but you want to bring that up and have make a teaching point of it. The general goal of these different techniques is to allow for self-reflection and self-guided correction. If you want to bring up a specific point and they're not able to recognize it, they're not able to bring up a solution for a problem that you posed or maybe they posed, you can use directive feedback as well. For example, let's say a medication was not prepared because the pharmacist did not hear the leader, and you were not able to elicit a solution for that problem. You may just end up saying, the pharmacist needs to clearly hear the leader's orders. So the proximity of these individuals and the noise level being low are crucial. So I would suggest that the pharmacist make eye contact or stand in a specific place and have their ear out for the leader. Just an example of how you may suggest something and you may just have to tell them instead of trying to get them to come up with the solution. Before ending this analysis part, or the debriefing in general, ask if there are any additional comments or questions. Lastly, ask learners to share a takeaway point. Go through each learner and ask what they would do in future cases from what they learned. And that's basically a summarization of the Pearls debrief. I hope this was helpful. If you want more details, we provided the reference for the Pearls framework. Thank you for watching.